What's up, y'all? And welcome back to Dad Needs to Talk. I'm your host, Robert, and today we got a lot of stuff to catch up on because it has been a minute. Life has been lifing, and that would definitely be one of the part of one of these subjects I'm gonna touch on a little bit later. I want to kind of talk on the subject of me trying to disconnect from being basically caught up in the current wave, so to speak. But I'll get to that in a second. I'm also going to be touching on the surprise Nintendo Direct we had today, AC Shadows. I've been playing that. I finished Severance, Invincible, and some new manga that just come out. Lots to cover. So before I get into all that, as always, if this is your first time here, then welcome. But if you're a returning listener and or watcher, then welcome back. Y'all know here at Daddy's to Talk, it's all about fatherhood and family, manga, anime, TV shows, movies, and of course, some video games. So, I hope everybody out there is doing well. I am very, very tired, but I was like, I can muster up some energy to hopefully record because I got a few things I want to touch on and talk about. But like I said, I hope all of y'all out there are doing well, and I hope that you will find something fun, maybe interesting or thoughtful in the myriad of things I'm gonna touch on today. And as always, there is timestamps in the description below if you want to jump ahead to any subjects or avoid any spoilers for any shows or manga I might touch on. So before I get so kind of just starting off, just kind of just like general, just life update stuff. Like I said, life has been lifing. Work has been extremely kicking my butt this week, which is it feels like every time I decide to use some PTO, work, and I come back to work, it's like work is like, oh yeah, well, you gonna make up for that time you took off tenfold, because that's what happened. So my kids were on spring break last week. And it was cool. You know, they were out of school. I still worked most of the week, but my wife and kids went away for a few days, so I got to actually have the house to myself for a couple of days. Granted, I still had to work, but I got to come home to an empty house, try to chill. But one of the things, and I've touched on this before in previous episodes, but it's like we are so busy with just like family stuff in general, stuff with the kids, all the sports and activities, and just life in general, that whenever I do take a day off, it's like I spend majority of the days off just trying to recuperate all of the lost nights of sleep, all of the lack of rest I've gotten or whatever. But anyway, so yeah, so got to do that. I took off Friday and Monday, so I had a nice little 4 day weekend. But yeah, when I came back to work Tuesday, it was just hard hitting. And it really affected me mentally in a way that I wasn't expecting, to the point to where, and I'm very sad about this, which I'm gonna touch on later on, but I was supposed to be, for the first time in over a year, I haven't had a guest on this podcast, and I haven't been a guest on anybody's podcast in probably well over a year at this point. And I was supposed to go over to the podcast with the homies, Inside the Mind of a Blurred, with Steve and Rob J, Rome, and I think Abby, to talk about Severance. But life was life in, and I had to choose my mental exhaustion over the discussion and stuff. So, but they still recorded, heard it was awesome. I'm looking forward to checking it out myself. But anyway, before I get into all that, uh, so yeah, life has just been super crazy, busy, whatever, and it has kind of just been, some of those moments where it's like a reminder of like, Rob, you're a family man, father of five, wife, wife's grandma lives here. It's busy, packed. We do a lot, so it is okay to pace yourself. And like I said, that's gonna be part of one of the main subjects I'm gonna get into a little bit. But I also got to just shower some love to my kids because my daughters had their first basketball banquet. a few days ago. So between my wife and one of the other moms of their teammates, whatever, got them uh, looking awesome, looking beautiful for the event. They both my twin daughters went and got some very beautiful dresses and shoes, hair done nice, and everything. And all the young ladies looked amazing, looked beautiful and stuff on the team. And it was kind of cool, just kind of getting to be there with all the other parents and stuff and the coaches and getting to show love and support to these awesome young girls, young ladies, on a awesome season that they had this year. So yeah, and a kind of a very interesting thing. So my kids were part of the first freshman group of the high school here. And at first I was like, that doesn't make sense. But then when I was talking to my wife and we were kind of discussing, I was like, okay, because I've mentioned before that up here in the school district that my kids are in, ninth grade is still at the middle school. So it's seventh, eighth, and ninth at the middle school. But if you do athletics in ninth grade, you still go over to the high school for sports and stuff. And so how things were previously, so basically there's a million elementary schools that funnel up to 5 middle schools that then funnel up to 2 high schools. And so previously each of the 5 middle schools just had their own freshman team. Well, this year they've restructured things, whatever, and so now the kids, the freshman teams go from 5 down to 2 because now they're just at the 2 high schools, whatever. And so yeah, so that was kind of cool that my kids are part of the first class of this new restructuring thing, whatever. So, but yeah, but shout out to my kids. My daughters had another track meet today. They both did awesome. Um, they've both have had PRs in their different events. I think one of my daughters had a PR in the 200 recently. The other one had a PR in the 400. But yeah, so it's been awesome seeing their growth and stuff. Um, and them, along with my oldest son, they've all been kind of practicing and preparing. And they've had a couple of tournaments here and there for basketball for their AAU team and stuff. And so we're really seeing a lot of the mental growth with them as well, with kind of taking, especially my son, taking more responsibility. And I think kind of like really understanding a lot of stuff me and my wife have been trying to tell him for a while about taking advantage of opportunities and stuff like that. Because my kids are kind of starting to hit a point now where, and this is a conversation we're going to have with them hopefully in the coming days or whatever, but it's like they have mixed feelings because, like, example, my son and one of my daughters, the one that's been playing basketball longer, they both have been playing up. So like my daughter, she started out preseason in high school, freshman team. By the time the season fully started, she was on JV, and then the second half of district, she was on varsity. And then my son, he was a starter on JV the whole year. So with AAU or whatever, they've both been playing up or getting opportunities to play up. And now they're kind of in situations now where some of their close friends and buddies that they've been playing with or they love playing with aren't moved up with them. And so it's kind of the reality thing of kind of in a way of saying like you can't take everybody with you, so to speak, or don't limit yourself because of your friends and buddies aren't able to perform or compete at a level that you're able to, whatever. Like, don't feel bad. Don't, try to restrict yourself just so you can continue playing with them. It's like, no, if you are at a level and you have opportunity to continue to grow and progress yourself, then that is what you need to do, especially as we are in high school now. It is like the clock is ticking on certain things, whatever. And so, bam. So that's just been, just like I said, just like a interesting new kind of spot we're at with things. And then we're gonna have to deal with another level of that too with my middle son later this year, as he gets ready to go to middle school and start doing different clubs and stuff, whatever he wants to get into, whatever. Because I think he had tried to sign up for the robotics program and he might have just barely missed it because of a little bit of academic stuff. And I talked to my wife about it, and I was like, "Well, this is a discussion we had to have with the older three a few years ago when they got to middle school and stuff, of the whole tightening up on your grades and your studying and stuff for it. Because like, hey, if you want to continue doing track and basketball, choir, or whatever extracurricular stuff you're doing, then hey, you don't pass, you don't play." And so far, all three of them have stepped up. Like, they have not been, failing or whatever. Now, there have been some classes or things where they maybe had a C or whatever, but it's like, well, hey, we do see the effort, because it might be a subject or something that they're not super strong in, but it's like we do see the effort that you are trying to progress and to get better and stuff. So yeah, so like I said, that's just a constant conversation that, like I said, as the kids continue to grow and as each of them reach new milestones in life and on their journeys or whatever, having to just have those different conversations and stuff with them. Um, but yeah, like I said, I'm very excited for how things are looking for my kids and their respective teams and stuff. So, and of course, hey, if any of y'all follow me on Instagram and you see me sharing my kids stuff, hey, say, hey, your dad sent me to show some love. But yeah, I'm super proud of them. So last little life thing I want to just share with y'all. So it's kind of hard to see because my camera won't focus properly. So, but this is a ring I got from my wife recently. So a little mini story time, and then we'll get into some other subjects. But I've talked before about how the year me and my wife got married was a roller coaster, to say the least. So, I proposed to her um, around Christmas time of 2016, and we planned to have the wedding summer of 2017. Well, a couple months into the year, we found out we were expecting, our little humanoid typhoon, Mr. Vash. So we found out she was pregnant. Okay, cool. And then a month before the wedding, I got laid off from my job. And so then we still, managed to have the wedding and stuff. And then Vash was born in November. And then I got into a car wreck literally a couple days after Vash was born. My car that I just paid off the year before got totaled. And yeah. So it was a whole roller coaster. And the bigger SUV, the family vehicle we had too. So literally on the wedding day, one of the kids was playing with the back window, like letting it up and down or whatever, and it got stuck like part way down. And so for months, we just drove with the car with the window stuck down until, of course, obviously between baby being born and then my car getting totaled, it was like, okay, we need a new vehicle, whatever. So anyway, so all that to say, 2017 was a roller coaster year, very memorable on both the extreme good and the extreme bad along the way. So, but back then, obviously, because of life stuff that happened or whatever, didn't have much money, whatever. Was able to get my wife a wedding band. I got my ring and stuff. But over the years, I've always internally felt like, man, I wish I could do more. And so finally, you know, we kind of been looking at different rings because we've been wanting to finally get her a newer, better, proper wedding ring and stuff. So we kind of looking around at different stuff, whatever. And long story short, we went to this one jewelry store and she saw two rings that looked awesome and was like, man, kind of struggling between them. And long story short, the guy that we were talking to said that they also do custom rings. And so he was like, okay, well, what are the things from each ring that you enjoy, whatever? And long story short, he was able to basically create a dream combination of these two rings that my wife loved. And so we were able to get it custom made, this lovely rose gold ring. So yeah, so I just wanted to share that with y'all because I'm very happy. My wife was super happy because she didn't know we were going to pick it up. So we knew, it was getting worked on and designed on and stuff, whatever. But luck, blessings, whatever the case may be, worked out to where the guy tried to call my wife to let her know that the ring was ready to be picked up. But she happened to be taking a nap at the time, so he called me next. And he's like, hey, Mr. Robert, blah, blah, blah. So, the ring was ready. And I'm like, wait, we can actually come pick it up already? And he was like, yeah. So, kind of played it off a little bit. Luckily, one of my daughters needed to go to the mall. She wanted to hang out with her friends, whatever. So I told my wife, I was like, hey, I want to go to the mall, look around at something, whatever. And like, hey, since now I need to go, we'll just, go at the same time, whatever. So, anywho, so while we were there in the mall, I was like, hey, let's step into the store, whatever. I want to check on something, whatever. And long story short, got to surprise her with, hey, here's the ring. So not only can she see it in person, but it's ready for us to actually take home. So very beautiful moment. Made me super happy. Obviously, my mom made my wife unbelievably happy. And yeah, so we was able to finally, almost 8 years later, finally able to make that dream happen. So shout out to the jewelry store. Shout out to my lovely wife for picking the design and stuff, whatever she wanted to get. So yeah. So let's dive into a little topic I want to touch on briefly. And this is something that I've kind of been on my mind for a while. And I'll say thanks to the help of someone who I consider a friend of the show, Miss Lisa from The Wonder of Anime. She recently wrote an article on her The Wonder of Anime website. Make sure to go read it, show some love, check it out. Called The Case for Slow Consumption of Media. And basically, she basically just talks about how in current day, everybody's so quick to want to be caught up on everything, be part of the conversations, read all the manga, watch all the anime, all the shows, blah, 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 whatever. And how, you know, it is kind of ruining things for some people feeling like they need to stay caught up. And so I kind of want to mix that with also just the thought of just enjoying things at your own pace. And also enjoying things or trying out things for yourself. Kind of stop worrying about the online discourse or all the online conversations and stuff. And I'm going to get into that when I touch on my situation with me and Assassin's Creed Shadows a little bit later when I get into the game section. But yeah, so this was kind of like a awesome starting point and just kind of like really helped me formulate some of my thoughts and stuff. But this is something that I have been slowly, I would say probably over the last year, probably like struggling internally, trying to break myself away from, I guess, feeling tied to that current conversation, or as Lisa put in her article, that hamster wheel, because I find myself in these moments. Now, I will say, back when I first started the podcast years ago, which is still wild, 4 years ago, I was reading, trying to stay current with everything, whatever. I'm putting out podcast episodes all time of day, night, whatever, just be part of the conversation, whatever. I'm just like releasing episodes all the time or whatever. But just not only just growing up and kind of like really thinking about things, but also just how my life has changed a lot, just like time wise in the last few years since, like, so really since my older three got to middle school and now to high school now. Uh, I am not able to keep up with the hamster wheel like that. And now there are plenty of people out there that do, and shout out to y'all. I appreciate y'all for doing what y'all do. But it is honestly, in some ways, it has been kind of tough trying to break myself from a lot of these honestly kind of bad habits I've built over the last few years or whatever, because it's like wanting to be caught up part of the conversation and then also wanting to create content to maybe try to time things, whatever, because there's a lot of, or I would say there's a few anime coming up in the spring season, starting literally in a few days. And there's a few things in there that I have read the manga for that a while back that I never got a chance to record a separate review for, whatever. And so weeks ago, I had a plan in my head of, oh, this is perfect timing. I can, reread some of that stuff, whatever, and then put out an episode or whatever to kind of, tie it in. It'll hit the algorithm, all that stuff, because I saw that happen last season with Orb, because I read, and I keep it right here, I read the first volume of the Orb manga uh, almost 2 years ago now, whatever. And I noticed when the anime got announced, and then while the anime was airing, I've been getting constant views for that video for that podcast episode. And so I'm like, okay, and that's happened with a lot of stuff like my Call of the Night review I did before that anime and lots of other stuff, whatever. And so I'm like, ooh, I can really hit this, and stuff, whatever. But the reality of my life hit hard because I have had a couple of pockets here and there where life seemingly wasn't as crazy busy as it was, 'cause I remember I told y'all a story probably like a year and a half ago where I was doing almost 80 miles a day. That sounds too low. But basically it was like 80 to 100 miles a day just doing stuff for my kids and commuting to work because, like I mentioned before, like I work um, on paper is like maybe 25 miles from where I live, but because of freaking 635 traffic and there's always a wreck on 635, construction and stuff, whatever, there's some days it takes me 45 minutes to an hour. Heck, last week on one of the days when I was home alone, kids was gone or whatever, it took me an hour and a half. I literally left the house at like 7:20, 7:30, and I didn't get to work until 9 a.m. because of a freaking wreck on 635 or whatever that shut down literally like 4 or 5 lanes of the highway right next to 75. But anyway, I'm rambling all that to say, you know, I got my work commute I do every day. And then a while back, we were driving farther out to take our kids to practice and stuff. And so that was when my wife was working odd schedule, so I had to handle all that stuff. So anyway, going back to more current stuff, like I said, it felt like there's some pockets here and there where it's like, oh man, me and my wife sitting around the house. It's the evening. Nobody has practice. We don't have any obligations. Like, man, this is weird. But then now this week it's ramping up. It's ramping up again. Cause like I said, work been crazy busy. And now, like prime example today or whatever, my son had practice about maybe 20 minutes away or whatever. And then my daughters, they had a track meet that was close to an hour away. We didn't go to the track meet, but they happened to be finished right after my son got finished from practice. I went, got my son, then I had to drive back up to the high school, then home, all the rigmarole. And so it's like I see the wheel starting to wind back up, and it's just like, yeah, Rob, man. So all this to say, in so many words through all my rambling and stuff, like it is okay to disconnect from the current and just kind of pick up things as you choose. And like I said, that is everything from manga to anime to TV shows, movies, video games, and just do things at your own pace. And that is also why I've been like really trying to also stop letting online discourse and stuff like start to infiltrate my mind and potentially force me into a decision that I might not just make on my own. I'm listening to too many other voices or reading too many things online that's kind of forcing my mind to start thinking these things. And so yeah, so it's been nice. Like I said, it's been a little struggle trying to pull myself away, but I had started noticing it, especially like example like with the seasonal anime or whatever. Like each season, I'll watch the first couple episodes of a lot of stuff, but I notice just like gradually over time, there are those things that are just either like you were super interesting or you were a very simple comfort watch. Like this winter season, there was a few like fantasy or isekai series, some of which were simul dubbed. They were super easy to watch. I could literally just turn off my brain. Oh, it's in English dub. I don't have to focus on reading. I could take my glasses off and just lay in bed, watch this chill anime, and go about my day or whatever. But yeah, but I've been noticing myself like slowly, I don't force myself to keep up with all this stuff just to be part of the conversation. It's like, hey, if something is good enough to hold me every week for a full season, then that is a true testament to that show. But there are also some things where I personally will be like, you know what? I've watched a couple episodes and I like this. I'm going to put a pin in it and then I'll come back either at the end of the season when it's done, or heck, maybe even several months later or a year later when, oh, it ended up getting an English dub. Now I can go back and just finish watching the rest of it or whatever. But, uh, but yeah, so that is kind of the pocket I am trying to get to. But like I said, I keep having these moments where I end up having a little bit of free time, and I'm like, oh, I ended up doing like earlier this year. I had a little constant cadence of every Friday for about a month or so, I had a new manga review and discussion I was talking about, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I can keep this up all year, and then it's like I've really been trying to do better and be better about not forcing myself to do recordings and discussions and different things um, just for the sake of doing them, being like, you know what, the hour plus I spend probably recording a podcast episode or trying to, I could just maybe be laying in bed, chilling, watching an anime or catch up on a show, playing a game I've been really wanting to play because I don't get too much playing time nowadays. And so that's kind of where I've been trying to put myself into whatever. And so that's why it's like, hey, I try to not be hard on myself and to just be like, hey, man, I do a lot considering what I got going on life and family wise. I do a lot. And I know I've mentioned before in the past, is like there are people who are single, have no kids, don't have all these extra family obligations or whatever, and even they are like, nah, I'm tapped out. I'm done. I'm done for the day. I did my work stuff, or I handled, or hey, just life was life, and I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna stream or whatever, or I'm not gonna record, whatever the case may be, whatever. So yeah. So like I said, I'm saying all that to just say I encourage you, if you feel it in the same bubble, that hey, it is okay to just pull away. I know some people have even gone as far as like, deleting social media apps off of their phone, or having it where hey, they only see social media apps when they are logged on their computer or at their work desk, whatever the case may be, or whatever, to kind of help break that. Because that's another thing where I'll see some controversial article on Twitter or something, whatever, and then I find myself scrolling through the comments, and I'm like, no, 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 Robert, stop. The time you wasting reading this trash mess, like you could be reading a manga or watching a show or whatever. So, but anyway, like I said, just to show some love to Lisa once again for this awesome article. Like I said, it's called "The Case for Slow Consumption of Media." Um, and then I also want to shout out the homie, well, really both the homies Polo and Tail from Mike Check Waifu podcast, but specifically for Polo, just on the case of game stuff, because, and I'll kind of use this to transition into talking about Assassin's Creed Shadows. So this kind of started probably, I guess, maybe like 2 years ago. So a big game, Hogwarts Legacy, was coming out. And obviously, there's a lot of different thoughts and things about the creator of the IP, and people online being like, hey, if you play this game, you're a trash person, you do this and that. And that stuff can be really affecting, especially for like somebody like me, to where it's like, okay, I do have this tiny little platform or whatever, and it's like, oh, am I gonna get looked at a certain way if I play this certain game or watch a certain thing or whatever the case may be? But it's also one of those things of like, sometimes you can still watch, play, read, whatever, in the safety of your own home, and you don't even have to say it online like, oh, hey, by the way, guys, I'm watching this thing, or I'm listening to this music, or I'm whatever the case may be, or whatever. It's like, hey, you can enjoy stuff without letting other people know or whatever. But I'm saying all that to say, I was mentally struggling with it, whatever, and then Polo was streaming it on his Twitch channel, and so I'm watching it or whatever, and I'm like, this really looks like a type of game. Even though I'm not like the biggest fan of the IP or whatever. I watched the movies and stuff as a kid growing up, but I'm like, it's kind of like a Robert type of game. So I'm watching him stream the game, and heck, by the time I watched, he had already been streaming for like 10 hours or something crazy. So I'm messaging him, whatever, in the chat, being like, yo, bro, you like this? And he's like, oh yeah, I love it. And I ended up getting whatever. Like I said, that was kind of like one of like the first moments since I've become a podcaster slash content creator or whatever I am, of being like, hey, it is okay to still make your own decision, regardless of what the noise is online or whatever, with certain things. It is okay to still, you know, check out certain things, whatever. And so that brings me to Assassin's Creed Shadows. So this game, of course, has just had controversy, or seeming controversy, left and right since it was announced. And it's like, oh my God, they got Yasuke, the Blacks. Okay, Ubisoft is finally doing an Assassin's Creed game, and finally doing an Assassin's Creed game in Japan. Yes, fans been wanting it forever. And it's like, wait, you got to play as a black samurai, and how historically accurate is how they are depicting him, and it's like, oh, you're playing as a black guy and an Asian woman and all this dumb stuff, whatever. And so this has been building up, obviously, over like the last year or so since the game got announced. So that brings me to last week when the game came out. So I think this was yeah, it came out that Thursday night, basically the going into my 4-day weekend. So, I saw the reviews and stuff come out for it. earlier in the week, whatever day it was, whatever. And I'm like, okay, seem to have some, mostly positive and stuff, whatever. And then, a lot of reviewers being like, hey, this is same old Assassin's Creed. If you've played one, you kind of know what to expect or whatever, yada, yada, yada. And then, just all this noise, all this discourse, whatever. And then I'm seeing some of my like real life people I know on my PlayStation Friends account playing it. And then some of my mutuals on Twitter I'm following, they're talking about it. They were talking about it all Thursday night going into Friday morning, like, yo, AC Shadows, yada, yada, yada. And so I'm like, I'm getting hyped, but I'm getting curious, but I'm also like, in the back of my mind, I'm like, internet discourse or whatever. And also, you know, I don't really have a lot of time to play a lot of games and stuff, whatever. And it's like, I've been playing through Lies of P, whatever, very slowly, whatever. But, I've put in like a dozen hours into that. And I'm like, no, Robert, you should just focus on finishing Lies of P first, whatever, before you make another big purchase, whatever, for a game. And so, like, I really sat on it and thought about it for like a better part of that day or whatever. And so I kept watching, and then I started like I really started in a weird way thinking for myself. So I end up looking to the game a little bit more, whatever, talking to my wife about it or whatever, and I'm like, I think I might just try this for myself because when I really think about it, it's like, yes, there was definitely a point in time where it was like, yo, they are putting out too much Assassin's Creed. It's just like every year. Heck, there was a couple times where we got multiple, like at least two or more Assassin's Creed games in 1 year, a couple of times back in the day. But then it's like when I really think about it, I'm like, okay, uh, as far as like the like the newer uh direction of Assassin's Creed since Origins, I'm like, okay, I got Origins. Funny enough, that came out right before Bash was born. And I got that. I loved it. I loved playing as Bayek and that whole storyline being in Egypt, all that stuff, whatever. So I'm like, okay, I like that. I didn't play Odyssey. I skipped it because of the whole, hey, that came out like literally like the following year. I'm like, no. And so, and then I ended up getting Valhalla because that came out when the PS5 launched. So I ended up buying that with my PS5, bought the crazy $100+ expensive version or whatever, just to get the big wolf. And then I played a good chunk of the game, but I got nowhere near finishing that game. And so I'm looking at it, I'm like, I didn't play Mirage or any of the multitude of DLC for Valhalla. And I'm like, wait, I'm like, Robert, it is March 2025. Valhalla came out in November 2020. So it's like it's been 4.5 years since I have played an Assassin's Creed game. And I'm like, this game looks cool. I love games set in Japan. I love Ghost of Tsushima. And so I'm like, you know what? I got some money because it was payday or whatever too. So it was like, and I do my little spring work bonus or whatever. I'm like, I got a few bucks to spare. Screw it. I'm gonna make a decision for myself, whatever. And all that to say, I've been really enjoying this game. I think when I saved before I started recording, I'm about 19 hours in. And funny enough, I put in at least like 6, 7 hours that first night I got it or whatever. So, cause let me see, cause it's Friday, so it's been a whole week. So it's been a couple of days where I didn't really get to play much. But, yeah, but I've been really enjoying the game. Like, first of all, like the game is like stunning. It is beautiful to look at. Um, and the other kind of like funny thing too with Shadows, especially like thinking back on like all the hubbub and controversy surrounding it or whatever. And this isn't really a spoiler, but because of how the story is structured or whatever, like I literally, and that's kind of why I kept putting off recording for a little bit. I literally just got access to play as Yasuke almost 20 hours into the game. Now there is like an introductory part where you kind of see like the intro story for both of them, both Yasuke and Naoe. But after that part or whatever, like I literally after like that first like day of me playing it, and I was about like 8 hours in, and I was still playing as Naoe, and I'm like, is is this right? Am I supposed to just be able to keep playing as her, and stuff, whatever? Where is the dude that's the internet has all this hubbub and anger and controversy surrounding, like where is the black samurai dude or whatever? But it's like the hours kept going. I hit 10 hours and then 15 hours, and I'm just enjoying just running around this world, being a little ninja assassin as Naoe. And eventually I ended up just like double checking. I'm like, did I miss something? But it's like a story beat thing. Like you have to do a couple story missions. But I'm like, I just been having fun just running around this world. And yeah, and this it just kind of just reminded me. I'm like, oh yeah, Assassin's Creed, especially these more modern ones that's come out since I've been a dad and stuff. I'm like, these are just comfort food. Now, yes, there are some parts of the games where I'm like, man, they really need to adjust how they handle some of this stuff, whatever. With a lot of the. So I guess let me back up and set up. For those of you who don't know, Assassin's Creed Shadows takes place in Japan during the Oda Nobunaga era. Yasuke is a black samurai. He came over basically as a slave with the Portuguese, and then ended up in service with Nobunaga. And then Naoe, she is a young assassin who basically is trying to find people who wronged her family. And that's kind of like the basic setup for it or whatever. And so it's just traditional Assassin's Creed, humongous open world with, lots of castles and camps and stuff to go take out enemies, level up, etc., etc., etc. So back to my point about some stuff, I'm like, so with there's a lot of castles in this game full of enemies, and I mean full of enemies. I mean like dozens of enemies to fight and combat and have combat with, which I will say with the combat, they do allow you to do some customization and stuff in the settings to where you can turn on like guaranteed assassinations. And what that means is in these newer Assassin's Creed games, if a bad guy was higher enough level or had enough health bars, enough armor or whatever, to where, so in Assassin's Creed Shadows, if a big enemy or whatever has a lot of health or armor, either so the enemies are like the basic grunts where it's like, yes, one health bar or one or two, you stab them with the assassin's blade, instant kill. There's some of them that will hurt them, but they will still have a bar or two of health left. And then there are enemies that are like, no, they're too strong. If you try to drop down on them or whatever, they would literally just like grab your blade or grab your arm and toss you to the side or whatever. Well, the guaranteed assassination, which I've turned on and just kind of been trying out so far, or whatever, I think I like it because it's like, hey, if I go through the work of stealthing and sneaking around this enemy camp and stuff, whatever, and I get the drop on you, then yeah, I should get the kill. And so they got stuff like that and other little tweaks. You can turn up the difficulty with the stealth or whatever. One of the cool things, like the name suggests, Shadows, is that it deals with a lot of like stealth and darkness or whatever. So like at nighttime, or if you're in a really shady corner of a building, or whatever, you're automatically considered in stealth. You can blow out candles, extinguish light sources or whatever to give yourself more cover. You can go prone, so you can basically fully down, crawling through the grass and stuff under buildings. So yeah, so like it just has like a really fun gameplay loop with Naue. Like I said, I literally just got Yasuke, so I haven't had more than like 30 minutes with him so far. But he is like the opposite, where he is just pure brute strength type of character. But um, but yeah, but all in all, like I said, AC Shadows, like I said, I'm happy that I made the choice to just go ahead and buy it because for one, the other thing too, whatever I had to think about too, I'm like, as much as I am enjoying Lies of P, that is also not a game that I can just jump into at the drop of a hat. Like, oh yeah, I got a few minutes before I go to bed. Yeah, I can jump into Lies of P real quick, whatever. And it's like, no, because it's like I hit my head against the wall for a while, and then I go to bed and I haven't really made any progress. Versus AC Shadows, okay, if I run into a problem, whatever, well, hey, I can just run away and go somewhere else in this vast world and still level up and different things. So, but yeah, all in all, like I said, it's been mostly positive with this. Like I said, there are some things where like a lot of the camps and castles and stuff feel similar, sometimes too similar. It would be nice if they had like a little bit more different theming or something to kind of like distinguish the different castles and stuff or the different camps that you're going into. But so far, not so much. I will say shout out to the kunai because I leveled up my kunai ability or whatever, and I'm just like throwing that thing across the map, man. Like taking dudes out. That is like my guaranteed. That is my go-to weapon of choice, I should say. Because I even took out like one of my assassination targets that was like kind of like in the center of this camp. Because I was like, man, I don't feel like clearing out dozens of enemies just to get to this lady. And then I snuck around, run across, going across some rooftops, sneaking around, and then I got them within eyesight, and I'm like, okay, she is literally like two buildings over, or maybe like a building and a half over. I can see her, so I pulled out my kunai and I kind of aimed it, and it showed the health bar like red, like oh, this will get her. So I threw it from where I was a couple buildings over. It hit her. I got the assassination confirmed, and then story progressed, whatever. So I'm like, oh, so okay, so I can really like sneak my way in if I don't feel like dealing with all these guys, but I'm like, oh, my target is right here. Hey, you can do that. And I will say shout out also with the kunai. That's something it took me several hours before I realized this. Whatever is that if you go over to the body that you threw the kunai at, you will get that kunai back. So you'll basically recover it from the body. And so, because a lot of times, um, I would have to be very choosy at first because I'm like, man, I only have started the game with like three kunai, and I would use them, and I'm like, crap, where's like a little because there's like little spots in certain areas where you can refill your tools or your uh, food rations and stuff, whatever. And I'm like, I don't see one. And then one time, I can't remember if I did it accidentally or if I just thought about it. And I'm like, wait, I threw this kunai at them, whatever, and I walked over to their body, and then it said you picked up one kunai. I'm like, and ever since then, I was letting them fly because I'm like, throwing them left and right, and then I'll like sneak over to the body, walk over the body, recover my kunai, and then just keep going. So shout out to the kunai, but yeah, so I look forward to playing more of the game, and like I said, seeing more of where this world and story go. So, but yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Now, moving on from there, so we had a surprise Nintendo Direct. So everybody's been eyes on April 2nd. So next Wednesday, the big Switch 2 Nintendo Direct is coming. So when they announced it months ago, it's like crap, man, that's 2 months away, and we gotta wait. And so as the weeks been passing, like, okay, it's a month away. Now it's like literally a week away. And then there started being rumors floating around online like, hey, rumor has it Nintendo's gonna do a surprise direct this week, whatever. And people calling BS like, yo, like what? That doesn't make any sense. They're literally about to blow out the Switch 2 next week. Like, why would they do a direct this week? And then sure enough, they announced it and it came out. So I'm gonna kind of run through just like some notable things I'm not going to talk about because a lot of this stuff I don't really know or care about or have any familiarity with it. But I'm gonna just shout out a couple of things. Some of this I'm gonna go through pretty quickly, but I'm still gonna maybe like mention the name of some things just in case if it's something some of y'all might be familiar with that y'all might want to check out and stuff. So yeah. So let me see. Okay. So they showed off a little bit more of Dragon Quest 1 and 2 HD remake, a game called No Sleep for Kaname Date from AI, the Sonoman Files. I think that's like some known series I have no clue about. Uh, this next one, let me see. Rido Remastered. So it's a remaster of the 2006 Devil Summoner game. This is a game from Atlas from back in the day. That's coming out in July. Shadow Labyrinth. So this is that. So I haven't watched the any of the secret level shows on Prime that came out last year, but I know that there was one kind of like based on like a dark themed like Pac-Man theme, and so basically it's kind of like a Metroidvania game with Pac-Man as like your assistant. But this looks pretty cool, and it's coming out July 18th, so that's one on my radar. Um, they showed off a good amount of new footage for Metroid 4 Prime Beyond. I've never been a big Metroid person, and I've definitely never played any of the Metroid Prime games. But they still didn't give a date for this, but I assume that that's probably going to get a date next week when they announce the Switch 2 date, because rumor has it Switch 2 is probably going to be coming out in maybe June. And so I have a feeling, and I wouldn't be surprised if this maybe is a launch game with the new Switch. Now, this one was a crazy surprise. So Patapon 1 and 2 replay collection coming to Switch on July 11th. Now, I've never personally played Patapon, but I am very familiar with the name because Patapon was very synonymous with the PSP. And when I say PSP, I mean PlayStation Portable back in the day. And so it was this, and then there is also a new Hot Shots golf game. So that was like two that caught a lot of people off guard. It's like, yo, two games that back in the day were very synonymous with PlayStation are getting Switch releases. So definitely very interesting. Disney Villains Curse Cafe, don't really care, but it's out now. This Witchbrook game looks pretty chill. It's like a what is it, magic mystery and romance. Coming out later this year. It's kind of like a beautiful like Pixar looking witch game. So don't know. The Eternal Life of Goldman. So this doesn't have a day yet, but I remember seeing this one a while back. You basically play as like this old man going on a adventure, and he kind of uses his cane, kind of like a pogo stick, like Scrooge McDuck does in the old Ducktales games back in the day. So, but that's one I'm kind of keeping my eye on. Looks pretty cool. Gradius Collection, Rift of the Necro Dancer, Tamagotchi Plaza. They showed off some new footage for Pokemon Legends ZA, where they kind of showed off this. It's called the ZA Royale, where at nighttime in Lumio City, there's basically like different trainers and stuff you can battle, and you're basically trying to level up to get from Z to level A. And so look pretty interesting. So, but who knows? I might check this out. Story of Seasons Grand Bazaar. It looks like this was what a DS game back in the day, so they're bringing it up to the Switch. So this new Nintendo Switch virtual game card thing. So let's see. So essentially, this is designed to let you manage your digital Switch games and even loan them out to Nintendo account family group members. So this one seemed kind of interesting, a little confusing to understand it, but so the idea is basically, in a way, it's kind of like a virtual representation of literally handing a friend or family member being like, oh, hey, you want to play my copy of Zelda I got, hey, you can borrow it or whatever, but it's doing it digitally. So like example, they even had like if you have in my situation, and this would be very interesting to see how like it works in practice, but like I plan on getting the Switch too, but I'm still obviously gonna keep my OG Nintendo Switch because Vash love playing on it, and so this would be a way to kind of maybe more frequently or better in a way share some games I might buy on my account and put it on my other Switch, so to speak, for my son to play. And it even like I said with the family group sharing thing, to where it's like example, um, if you have, let's say you have a family group with some of your friends or even a distant cousin or whatever, well, you can loan your game out to a friend for 2 weeks. So basically, okay, if my nephew came and visited and he was, oh yeah, hey, I really like that Mario Kart game looks pretty cool. I would love to try it out. I'm like, well, hey, well, here, and you can send it to them, give them access to it, but it's only for basically 2 weeks, and then automatically it's on a timer. So after that 2 weeks is up, it automatically takes it away from them and puts it back in your digital library. So that's a kind of an interesting thing. Like I said, I definitely kind of want to read up more on it, but yeah, just something that really caught my attention. A new Rhythm Heaven game called Rhythm Heaven Groove coming out next year. Never really played any of those games. Let's see. None of that stuff really caught my eye. Monument Valley. Those are games I've always wanted to try out, but those are finally coming to the Switch later this summer, along or actually in a couple of weeks, along with Monument Valley 3 coming out in the summer. All right, it's about everybody's golf. Okay, Marvel Cosmic Invasion. So this is one that is basically made by the same team or the same studio that did that TMNT Shredder's Revenge that came out a year or two ago. Me and Vash love playing that. It's a like a retro 2D beat 'em up style game. And this is like a Marvel version of that. So I am very excited. Like, as soon as I saw it and they showed us some of the gameplay, like they've already confirmed who. Let's see, uh, Nova, Spider Man, Wolverine, Captain America, Venom, Storm. Those are like a few of the characters they've already shown off so far. But I'm super excited for this to play it with Vash. And a new Tomodachi game, Tomodachi Life Living the Dream, coming out next year. And there is a new Nintendo app thing called Nintendo Today. They will be full of news and announcements and stuff for you to keep up with. So, but yeah, so all in all, nothing too crazy, whatever, with that direct. But like I said, a few gems in there. But like I said, I am super excited for next week to see this full blowout of the Switch 2. So, but yeah. So I think I'm gonna get ready to jump into some of this TV stuff really quickly. Okay, so Severance season 2 ended last week, and like I said, if y'all want a longer, more in depth discussion, go check out the friends over at Inside the Mind of a Blurred podcast. Kind of they did a pretty lengthy episode, so shout out to y'all. But yeah, so Severance. So just as a little bit of a reminder, so for myself, so I didn't watch the original Severance until maybe a year and some change after it had already aired. I think I had watched it in, I think maybe 2022, I think. Okay, 2023. So I watched it in 2023, season one. So I got to watch it all in one sitting. Now, it was pretty cool to be part of the weekly conversation with Severance and to just kind of hear the theories. And honestly, even without all like the online stuff, whatever, even just for myself to kind of just like have that week to kind of just like think and mull over different things, which this kind of goes back to the article I was talking about, at least with like the whole like binge stuff, whatever. It's like sometimes it is good to still have pace with watching the show. Even if it's like, hey, all the episodes are out, but even if you still just kind of yourself, just like, hey, I'm gonna watch just an episode a day or a couple episodes a week or whatever, just do the time or whatever. But yeah, Severance was definitely one that was super cool to see and hear the weekly discussion. Now, I will say, and I feel like this is definitely like a just because of how more grander the world and stuff kind of got with this series, that the bigger scale of what they're trying to do and cover kind of hurt the show in a few aspects to where it would be certain characters that we weren't seeing every episode. Like we didn't see Miss Cobell that often. We didn't see Irving well in the first few episodes, yes, but like after a certain point, it wasn't really seeing Irving too much more. And obviously, this I forgot to mention this will be some potential spoilers for Severance season 2, but yeah, so it was kind of disjointed in some ways, and then kind of heard just a discussion and talking about kind of like how like the that Cobell episode where we kind of go to like her home, her childhood hometown or whatever, and it felt like them trying to like do a lot of like catching up and kind of like, okay, hey, we got Cobell back in for a while. Now let's kind of get her set up for final episode stuff, whatever. But yeah, but I would say it was way more high points than this season than there were for some kind of like so episodes like that episode, that Cobell episode, definitely a so episode. Um, the camping field trip episode was interesting. Like I wasn't too sure. Now that was kind of, I think that might have been like one of the first times this season where the episode transition, like topic or location transition, really took me aback surprisingly, because it's like, if I remember correctly, the episode before that, Mark was kind of getting operated on for the reintegration stuff, whatever. And then it's like next episode, okay, everybody's outside in the wilderness, and it's like, did I miss an episode? Did I miss like a post credit scene? Stuff like that or whatever. And so it was like moments like that versus like season one, because of kind of how contained things were 99% of the time, whatever. And we had a constant, you know, uh, regular cast of people and stuff versus, how things kind of went this season. But I will say Mr. Milchek, MVP, character and actor and all that stuff, him and the character that does Gemma, aka Miss Casey, like both of them, because man, the whole everything from the higher ups having a problem with Mr. Milchek's higher vocabulary and how he talks and speaks and use big words and all this stuff, whatever, to that his internal struggle with that, and kind of like him having some realization of like man, this is kind of just a job, or kind of starting to have like those like few chinks in the armor, but because like they had this dude running around all times of night, going to their houses after hours and stuff, and had them outside in the wilderness, and almost got the owner's daughter killed. And so, which that, now I will say, like that part, like when the episode kind of got past that kind of like initial point to, well, I'll say, I guess it started out pretty strong, because it's like, okay, what's going on, where are we? There's kind of a little bit of a lull, but then once it kind of got to Mark and Haley having their moment in the camp thing, to Irving having his seemingly flip out moment and all that stuff. That was all very strong stuff. Miss Wong was a very, very cool and interesting addition to the cast and stuff. So I really just like the whole, you know, characters being like, why are you a child? and she'd be like, because of when I was bored. I love that stuff. But yeah, all in all, though, Severance was good. Also, man, shout out to the freaking marching band, man. Like seeing Seth going off, and I can't remember that there is like a Twitter account that I came across that was doing all these awesome edits of that scene to just different music and stuff. And almost every time the music was on point with the insanity of the marching band and stuff. So, but yeah, so shout out to Severance. That final episode though, like, and with how everything played out with Gemma and Mark and the escape and the killing and everything in between. Super crazy, super intense episode. And man, what a cliffhanger ending. And I do agree with some people to where it's like, I honestly, part of me wouldn't be too mad if they were like, hey, no, that's just it or whatever. But I will say, I hope that they do, if, they're going to do a season 3 or whatever. I kind of hope that they wrap it up with this because I do not want this to turn into a Westworld situation. We all remember season 1 of Westworld. Fantastic, phenomenal. Like, yo, what is going on? This is a crazy concept or whatever. And then season 2, still pretty strong for what I remember. But then, like, once we got past season 2, and once again, kind of like Severance, kind of get into like the bigger world, bigger picture, more stuff going on outside of the original established space, whatever. Then it started losing the plot and kind of started falling apart. So I do not want that for Severance. So like I said, I hope that they kind of tighten things up and end it with season 3. Like it don't need to go on for 4 or 5 seasons or whatever. So bam. So shout out to Severance. Um, okay. Very briefly, just gonna touch on Invincible. So I finally made my way to Invincible, and this is just one of those cases, kind of going back what I was talking about earlier with like pacing yourself, doing things on your own time as you feel ready to do them and to tackle them. So I got to watch seasons 2 and 3 back to back because back when season 1, really enjoyed watching that back when it originally came out. Then season 2, and that came out a couple years ago, whatever. I remember seeing the weird release schedule ahead of time of like, okay, we're gonna do 4 episodes in the fall, or like fallish time, and then they're gonna take a month's break, and then March of next year we'll do the remaining 4. I was like, nah, I'll just wait and watch it when it was done. Well, it ended. It came and went. I wasn't really bothered by it. Like, you know. So season 3 came around or whatever, and once again I'm like, ooh, Invincible, but also it's a million things to watch and keep up with or whatever. I'll check back in later. So a few weeks ago, I'm like, okay, hearing that it's wrapping up, we're getting close to wrapping up. It finally ends, and I'm like, okay, I'm hearing a lot of positive buzz about season 3. And then I was like, oh yeah, I never even watched season 2, so I started it or whatever. I will say season 2 was solid, but not the best. I definitely feel like season 3 was better than season 2. Uh, just overall with how that was handled and stuff. Cause season 3, like things just like really started, like the scale of the problems and stuff continued to escalate and get worse and worse. Overall though, I really enjoy watching the show. Now I did have an interesting moment a couple weeks ago where my middle son Andre, who is 12, came in and he was like, "Hey, am I able to watch Invincible?" And I was thinking on it, and I was like, "No," because originally I was saying no because of I know that they touch on a lot of like adult stuff, like the characters having sex and different relationship stuff, whatever. So I was like, no, cause and I was like, and in my head I was like, I'm not even too. Before I was like fully diving really back into it or whatever, I was kind of like, I'm not even too tripping on like the violence part of it or whatever. But then as I continued watching and catching up on the rest of the episodes and stuff and seeing how much more brutal it continued to be, I was like, yeah, yeah. Also because of the violence too. I didn't say that to him, whatever, because he was like, oh, okay. When I told him just originally, I was like, not yet. And then, like I said, as I continued to watch it or whatever, it was some stuff that even me as a 35-year-old, I'm kind of like, ugh, should I be watching this? Seeing bones sticking out of people's faces getting completely mushed to pieces and stuff. Like it was some pretty gnarly stuff that they was doing, man. But yeah, so maybe in a couple of years I might kind of finally let him check that out and stuff. So, but for now, no. But sorry, Bucko. But yeah. So shout out to Invincible, man, and shout out to them for the casting. For they got Jeffrey Dean Morgan to cast this character named Conquest, who was basically the final hurdle Mark had to go against at the end of season 3, and it's just funny because obviously Mark is voiced by Glenn or the Stephen Wynn, who is Glenn in Walking Dead, and Jeffrey Dean Morgan is Negan. So it's kind of funny seeing those two interact with each other again in a different show and stuff. But yeah. So all in all, Invincible, super dope. Glad to be caught up on it. And who knows what other show I might get to next? Who knows? Because I'm behind on Abbott Elementary. I'm super behind on. I think I didn't watch the last episode, the recent season of The Bear, which season 4 is coming out. So I might once again just wait until both are done and just watch them both together. But yeah, there's always stuff to try to watch and keep up with and stuff. So it is just sometimes maybe too much. but um, but yeah, so I'm gonna just touch on a couple of things before I hop off because it is almost 12:30 in the morning, and I did not realize that, and I got a very long and busy day ahead of me tomorrow. But so yes, I'm gonna touch on a couple of these things really quickly. Okay, so a newer manga that I finally started reading, and I was very excited because I just saw a new chapter that came out today that I can't wait to read tomorrow. But it's called Mason and the Man-Eating Apartment. So the synopsis of this is: the clock strikes at the single second before the end of the world. Yet humanity has escaped extinction and carry on their daily lives in the strange and terrible apartment where time stands still. A young girl, Mason, landlord by birth, is on the brink of revealing its secrets. An astonishing sci-fi fantasy manga brought to you by a visionary duo. So, this one really caught my attention. So, just the setting itself kind of in a way reminds me of how the old house is in for anybody that play the video game Control, which is by Remedy, the same studio who does the Alan Wake games and all that stuff, to where it's like a singular location, but it is bigger than what you would think, whatever. It's got a lot of different supernatural stuff happening. That is pretty much what's happening here because it says this apartment. Well, it's not a typical actual apartment building like what I live in. It is literally like a giant, like towering structure, uh, which I wonder if it's on this first page. Do, 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 do. Yes. So this big thing. Uh, yeah. So that big thing. So the people are living in there, and I don't know. It is kind of weird to try to like talk about and describe, but like I said, it has just like that weird vibe. Here is some like screenshots from some moments and stuff in the manga that I really enjoy. Like the art in it is super dope. Uh, and it's just fascinating, just like seeing all these unique and different characters and creatures and seeing and learning more lore about this world and what is really going on and so on and so forth. So this was, like I said, just kind of more of like a just a shout out and put on your radar type of thing. But yeah, like I said, like you said, like Mason, this girl, she was born, and which I'll just say like the beginning, like that first chapter, her and another baby, which I think is a friend that's in the manga, both kind of get spit out from like this like ceiling creature device thing. I don't know, very weird. And just from birth, it was like, okay, hey, this baby will be the next landlord. And so when she started becoming of age or whatever, it was like, okay, hey, time for you to take over your duties. And then something very crazy happens to a childhood friend and kind of leads Mason on this journey to kind of like wanted to explore and get answers to like, okay, what happened to my friend, what's going on, etc., etc. So yeah, so shout out to Mason and the Man-Eating Apartment. So just a couple other, just like really quickly, Centuria recent chapter was really good. They did a thing where so there's a king in the series or whatever where his face has always been shadowed out or whatever. And so a lot of people had just been thinking, like, oh, it's just a typical manga thing where, just like, oh, the lighting isn't hitting the character's face right. So that's why their face is kind of like shadowed out in the darkness or whatever. And then we got the reveal this week of like, no, that's not literally what's happening. It's like another character has an ability that put basically kind of like a shadow looking mask over their face. So that was like a very cool and interesting reveal. And then also the reveal of a character that we've been seeing for a while. And then this new dope armor looking character that we saw end up being the same person or whatever. So shout out to that moment. That moment was pretty cool. Uh, Let me see. Mad, that continues to be solid. Embers, I've really been liking that soccer manga pretty good, pretty much. Uh, Let me see. Those are the main ones. The Marshall King. Like, I don't know why this continues to just really speak to me. Just like the art, man, the freaking covers and the use of splashes of color throughout the chapter or whatever. Like, I don't know, man. I don't know what it is, but it is just like truly such a chill vibe to read this every week, man. Uh, and like I said, I think it's just the art, the color, the use of color, and it all being wrapped up in this Western themed series and stuff. So, but yeah, but the Marshall King, I continue uh, to love checking it out each week. Now, the last manga I just want to just shout out really quickly that I finally caught back up on because I was like 10 chapters behind on, and that is Akane Banashi. So I was, yeah, about 10 chapters behind, which I feel like that is always like a perfect length to fall behind on this, and also Sakamoto days and stuff as well. But um, but yeah, so slight spoiler, just reminder. So where I stopped at, there was a 3 year time skip, and Akane was in Paris and or in France or whatever, and that reporter dude happened to be over there traveling for work and came across her performing and went to her show, and they kind of kicked things off to get us back to what's going on now. And so we kind of found out that she was sent overseas as part of a assignment from I can't remember the old man's name, but the grumpy guy that she's now a student under. He sent her there like, hey, to go learn or whatever. And so we got to see her performing and stuff, and yeah, overall, and just kind of just getting to see a few returning characters, and but as well like several new characters and stuff as well, because she's been gone for 3 years, and so there's been a lot of new students coming into the school and different things like that. But she definitely kind of made her presence known when she came back for people that were doubting her and her skills, because she's been gone for a minute, but now she came back um, as a force to be reckoned with. And of course, I love seeing the beautiful color spreads and pages again. But yeah, so shout out to Akane Banashi for coming back. And yeah, I think with that, I think I'm gonna wrap this up. Let me see. Yeah, I don't think there's nothing else too much I wanted to touch on. Um, yeah, so that's pretty much it. Um, so game plan or potential game plan, I'm trying to figure out. I still don't know if for the spring anime season, if I want to do a regular preview beforehand, or if I want to do like I did. I can't remember if I did that for winter or when I did it. Actually, let me see real quick. Okay, yeah. So yeah, I did wait a little bit. So I don't know. I'll see how I feel over the coming days, but I think I might do the same thing again, where I'll wait until I watch a few episodes of a lot of stuff, whatever, and then maybe at the end of April, kind of like check in and let y'all know what has caught my attention so far, or how the quality of certain things I was already anticipating has turned out and stuff. So yes, I think that might be how I tackle that. Now I know for sure next week I do plan on hopefully doing some type of even if it's just a solo focused episode. I will be touching on the Nintendo Switch 2 sometime. Hopefully, end of next week, once that direct and stuff happens. And yeah, we'll see. And like I said, I have manga that I want to review and talk about and stuff. So, but hey, like I said, man, life is life, and it is freaking 3:30, 12:30 in the morning. I need to hop my butt off. But yeah, but stuff will come when it comes. Like I said, um, I am just really trying to course correct my mind and my habits from feeling the need to have to be on top of things, whatever, because I do feel like when I am able to focus in on something, then I'm able to, if I do want to talk about it to y'all, that I am able to give the best version of my thoughts and things when it's like, okay, hey, I have been focusing on just this show or this manga or this video game, whatever, for a while, and I've had time to kind of like properly think and formulate my thoughts with this, and now I can talk to y'all versus just, yeah, I watched, all of it in one sitting or whatever, and this is how I feel. So I'm trying to avoid that, but like I said, it's a struggle sometimes. Because like I said, it's very easy to get swept up in all of the online and social media stuff. Because like I said, like prime example, like I said with Assassin's Creed Shadows, and how I was pretty much ready to just, I'll just pass. I might either fully pass on it, or I'll get it later in the year when it's on sale. But it was like, no, I'm very happy. This has been the perfect time for this type of game for me to have and to play. Like, so just like a really nice comfort food. Because heck, there was even one morning which I haven't done this in a long time. Like the other morning, I literally played it for like 30 to 40 minutes before I got ready for working to get the kids up and stuff. So whereas I got up, got my middle son up like I always do, because I get up at 6, get my middle son up by 6:10, 6:15, because he has to leave the house first. So get him up, And then I came back in the room and I hopped on the game for a bit. I pushed it that day, whatever. But yeah, but typically, like I said, I'm up typically at 6 or around that time. Middle son up 6:10, Vash up 6:30, the twins up at 6:45, which is also the same time that my middle son is leaving to go get on the bus. My oldest son up at 7, and then by 7:10, 7:15, me and Vash are heading out the door so I can try to get him dropped off at school. Then I drive to work, and then my wife tries to get the older ones to school by 8 o'clock, between 7:30 and 8, or depending on what they got to do that day, or whatever. And so yeah, but yeah, I was just very surprised that I managed to successfully play almost 30 minutes of the game of Assassin's Creed Shadows before I went to work the other day. So, but yeah, so shout out to that. Hopefully, also maybe in the coming weeks, might have some thoughts because my wife also started playing Fall, because I've talked about before how my wife has this love for Fallout 4, and so I went to go pick up the kids from the different practices, or my and stuff, whatever. And so when I walk back in the room or whatever, I looked at my wife's TV and I see her Xbox is downloading Fallout 4. And so I'm like, hmm. So I'm like, hey, so I know you like Fallout 4. There's a new game that just came out. It's on Game Pass. It's not 100% Fallout like, but it's in the ballpark, and it's called Fall. So anyway, so she, we watched the trailer for it or whatever, and then she downloaded it and she started playing it. So she played kind of like the introductory part, kind of then got out into the world. So I'll be interested to see if she sticks with it or how she kind of feels when she kind of, get the wheels turning on and stuff. So, but uh, but yeah, so I'm about to hop off. I'm gonna get this uploaded and hopefully have it out sometime tomorrow. But I have a super busy day at work. But y'all won't know that because y'all will already be seeing this whenever the case may be. but um, but I'm supposed to hop off of here. As always, thank you so much for watching or listening. You can find me everywhere at Danny to Talk. And yeah, like I said, apologies for the infrequency of the episodes and stuff, whatever. But like I said, it kind of it is what it is, and I'm trying to be okay with that because I'd rather, still release stuff from time to time when I'm able to and mentally prepared to, versus trying to force a arbitrary schedule or whatever upon myself, knowing that my life is busy as is and it's about to ramp up and get busier over the coming months and stuff as we get ready for school to wind down and head into summer sports and other obligations and stuff we got to deal with, life and family wise. So but um but yeah, but I'm rambling on. It's 12:40 now and this podcast is about to be an hour and a half long. So thank you so much for watching and listening. As I always say, treat yourself to something nice, read some manga, watch some anime, TV shows, movies, watch some anime, TV shows, and movies, play some video games, and of course, live your best life and get some rest. Get some rest for me, because clearly I'm not getting enough rest. Uh, and I will catch you on the next one. Thank y'all so much for all the love and the support. And I'll see y'all next time. Peace.